This is CG Talks, the podcast where CG guys talk about CG.
This podcast is powered by GarageFarm.net, a place where 3D cloud rendering is incredibly fast and cheap.
Hello again, and we're continuing the conversation with Federico Biancullo from The Big Picture. Let's jump into another topic, and that would be wearing many hats in the CGI Archviz industry. You describe yourself on your website at least as a jack of all trades.
Yeah,
and this is a common name for many artists, like at least 3D generalists.
Yeah.
And I'm asking this question for selfish reasons, considering myself also more of a generalist guy than narrowly specialized. And there is a common belief that this might be a disadvantage. As they say, jack of all trades, master of none.
Yes.
And how would you compare being a generalist to specializing in a narrow field?
Well, I'm sorry. When I mentioned jack of all trades, for me, it's a bit broader than the 3D generalist that we used to think about. As for 3D, yes, I'm a generalist in the sense that I'm used to do everything in my images. I used to do the concepting, I used to do lighting, the texturing, basically everything, post-production, everything, you name it, really. And that's how most people in my circle work. I really know just very little people that are specialized into a certain field. All my contacts, all my closer friends are all generalists. So all people that work in, high-end Archviz firms that do competitions, that do press release, and they bring the image from 0 to 100. And that goes for CG. I don't think it's a disadvantage because this kind of people, especially in this kind of firms, are really, really sought after. Right now, I see a lot of people struggling to find two good 3D generalists in our industry and among my circle of contacts. So I think being a senior or an art director and knowing how to shape an image from the start to the end, I think it's a really great asset. But when I mentioned jack of all trades, for me, it's a bit of a different thing. Because you see, I always tried since my start in Archviz in 2014, I always started to branch out Archviz and to do something else that it was not Archviz for myself. Because I always thought that Archviz will not be my future for long. I mean, I don't see myself still doing images in the next 5 years or 10 years. I'm actually right now I'm starting to think about project management positions, for example, and trying to evaluate I'm trying to think about that path for my career, about teaching. So I'm trying to do a lot of things to explore. So this is my kind of a keyword: explore, trying to understand different aspects connected to the industry. Because I don't want to quit the industry. I thought about it. I'll be honest. I thought about quitting the industry at a certain point during the pandemic, but this is not the case anymore. But mentioning jack of all trades for me means being present in the industry in different forms, which is, podcasting, teaching, project manager, consultancy. So I'm trying to understand my position, my place in the industry, and trying to offer different kind of services. So what I do is, you already know the mention the podcast at the beginning. That's something that I started in 2020, and it's part of my, my activity, my continued activity in Archviz. I'm a content creator as well. I do content for architecture and illustration in Italian under the name The Control C Blog. We started in 2015. 2015, by the way. Now I started this new adventure with Engram Lab as a lead teacher and course coordinator. So we're starting courses for intensive classes actually in October. So I'm trying to, go outside the path of the traditional 2D artist that just does images and try to open up new things. And I think it's also a matter of, putting your ego aside. Many artists, they have this image of themselves, of that person shutting themselves in their own rooms or their own offices, doing these great images, doing these great masterpieces of work with their own names, with their own ownership. This is something else that I'm reconsidering these days. even though I have my own firm and my own clients, I'm opening up myself to collaborate with other bigger firms on other projects. So I'm trying to branch out and to be, a multi, as they call it, I don't know the word, but a multidisciplinary architect. Somebody calls them that way. The multidisciplinary Archviz artist. I don't know if that's a thing or not, but I like to explore different paths in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. Like
in general,
I remember like when I was educating myself, I started out being educated as an interior designer, and one of our professors said that this is a particular funny how you say it job type, because this is like being completely non-specialized in anything, but knowing so many fields that this is really needed in the market, that you are aware of many aspects of many areas, right? It's like partially art, a little bit of architecture, a little bit of psychology, client management, and everything. So you need to be kind of a jack of all trades. And right now, I think with the whole world being so changing, I think it's important that you said like the word explore or be open and flexible.
I think so. I think it could be beneficial to many people, many artists in our industry. Of course, being a freelancer, you were saying that you have to wear many hats. It's especially true for freelancers. Freelancers have to be able to wear many hats. But aside from that, even artists that are employed, I think exploring different things in the industry are not just strictly connected to the industry. It's a great way to also diversify your activities. It's not just a matter of exploring. Of course, it's also a matter of building up different sources of income. Especially when you're a freelancer, you're never really sure of the job that you're getting. For example, I've been almost dry of work, or just didn't get any work for 1 month and a half, and now all my clients they just came together all at once. So when you're a freelancer, you also have to pay attention to that. And if you have side activities or some kind of I don't like the term passive income, but there's also definitely a possibility of trying to teach something that you know well how to do to other people. There's a lot of possibilities right now. I think artists can consider these other options, not just teaching, but also asset creation. That could be an option. Even social media, I'm really into that. As you can see, that can open a lot of possibilities. I'm trying also the podcast. I'm really trying to branch it out and to open it up to sponsorship in the future. I hope this is going to be a thing pretty soon. So the more things that you do, of course, in the limits of your time and your own possibility, the more opportunities you open up for yourself.
Yeah,
and the more things you know you can be good at doing, and more paths you can open up for yourself, and not just for yourself, but also in probably other big endeavors or other big opportunities. This thing of the school with Engram Studio would not have been possible if I wasn't doing this kind of educational content. So this has opportunity. So this thing has opened up another opportunity for me.
Yeah, great. That's kind of reminds me of our talk with Fabio Palvelli. You have also interviewed him on your podcast. Like, he's an example of a man who was doing some kind, like he was doing Archviz, but then he kind of branched off to more community activities, like doing the D2 conference and consulting companies. Right now, I think he's involved in some kind of a metaverse venture.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's quite a good way of finding your way. Not everyone has to just like sit and do images all the time, but I think it's important to be able to turn your interest into business. So do you have anything like any kind of education in that area? Like do I have to learn how to do business to be successful as an artist, or generally in the industry? How do you see that?
Yeah. Well, for the sake of truth, many of the things that I came up in these years about branching out, it's something that came up in conversations that I actually had with Fabio during the years. So I have to keep giving credit for that. And as for what you were mentioning, studying business. Well, I wouldn't say it's necessary to be successful. You can be successful even without having studied business. But I wouldn't hide that it helps a lot. I don't have an education in business. I thought about pursuing it multiple times. And I think it will be helpful to open up your mind, especially about the whole acquisition process, about the whole client management process. I'm a person that has a lot of problem in acquiring new clients because I don't like to market my work, So that's something that I would love to study, that aspect in particular. So studying all this aspect, especially for artists that are really, in general, artists are like, have a few problems in coming up with a unique selling point and marketing their own work. So studying these topics could be really, really useful, I think. Not necessary, of course. There's a lot of firms that do successful work without knowing business. So it's not necessary, but it could be useful, especially if you want to build something that is a little bigger than the 4-people boutique office.
At garagefarm.net, you'll find many 3D rendering solutions. Use coupon codes visible on your social media channels during registration to boost your account up to $100 of free render credits and check how quick and life-saving 3D cloud rendering is.
So, do you consider, like, with that business side of things, that, or just finding finding new ways of income, or generally like dealing with the career? What do you consider the biggest value of podcasting and maybe public speaking, like on conferences and stuff like that?
Well, podcasting and public speaking, I think, are two very different things. Podcasting for me has a great value in exploration. I started podcasting in a time where I felt disconnecting from the community, from the industry. So it was the end of 2020. So we were in the middle of pandemic, I would say. And the value of that is networking and knowing different perspectives, different aspects of the job, and knowing that there's so many different possibilities in the industry, not just image making, but also, project management, art direction, consulting. There's so many other interesting options. But not just that, even for those who want to do images, for me, also, the value of doing podcasts is giving a service to the community and to let people understand that image making is there, but it's not all. There's other aspects around image making that are really important in our industry and that should be considered when one wants to pursue a career into Archviz or wants to evolve as an Archviz artist. So the main goal of the podcast, the main value I found in this was that not just for other people anyway, but also for myself, just to clarify this concept, these ideas for myself. And the podcast has helped me a lot to grow as a person and as an artist, and to understand that people out there have so much experience to share, and their things could take so many different turns. So for me, it was a growth opportunity. As for public speaking, I have to say I had the opportunity to just be at the D2 virtually last year, the D2 conference as a speaker. I would have loved to do it in person, of course, but I cannot tell you that much because I haven't been speaking in public in person for a long, long time. I've been a guest at podcasts, I've been interviewed, but I have not been a guest as a speaker. But I think the principle is still the same. So share value with the community. And also, egoistically speaking, because things are made for several reasons, not just for selfless reasons. Of course, that's the sharing part, but also the part of building yourself a position in the industry, to building a stance for yourself and to be advocate for something. For example, I wanted to be an advocate for mental health in the Archviz industry. And that's why I went to the D2 stage last year and I didn't show any of my work, just because I wanted to be an advocate for that and build my position around that.
So like building a personal brand, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I wanted to digress a little bit with that topic and ask you about whether you have any non-Archviz related skills or interested hobbies, something like that's detached from the industry and that you do, and maybe you see that it proves to be useful for you in your professional life. We mentioned back then. We mentioned the tabletop RPGs, or maybe maybe something totally different.
But this reconnects a lot with work. Tabletop role-playing games are a social activity, a really social-heavy activity. And I find myself very often in the position of trying to not be a leader, because I don't think I will be I'm the leader of my group of people when I play, but the person that tries to be reasonable, the person that tries to manage things in the proper way. So that's a really useful skill to apply in your work, to be the adult in the room, to be the grown-up, and to put things in the right place. I will not go deep into examples of the game, but that's a skill. That's a skill that you can reuse in your job, in your work life as well. Podcasting has helped me a lot in technical skills like audio editing, and also content creation has helped me a lot, understanding how to edit videos. So I'm picking up skills here and there. That's why the jack of all trades thing, and all these skills, I found room to apply them in the launch of the school yesterday. That we made yesterday, for example. So everything kind of reconnects, and if you can find your opportunities for yourself, you will end up applying those skills in different fields. But even if I were to, apply as a 3D artist or as an art director for an Archviz firm, probably these skills will find a place. This kind of expertise will still find a place, even if your line of work is standard, so to say, and it goes into the traditional image making. Knowing all these things are always an added value. Another thing that I've been doing since 2015, writing. I've been writing in Italian for my blog. I've been writing, I don't know how many dozens, thousands of lines for my articles so far. So that's another skill that I picked up that has helped me a lot so far. So even if you think that a skill could not be applied to your work, you can always turn it around. But in general, you don't need to apply your skills and your hobbies at all costs to your works. Hobbies could be just hobbies for the sake of it, for the sake of recharging. So you don't have to find usefulness in what you do at all costs. I think that's wrong, and that could be dangerous in a way.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like more probably allowing life to just flow, as you said. That is sometimes in the most unexpected moments it comes down that it's useful, but you didn't plan it to be useful. You just have those skills or got them by the way of doing something else, and suddenly they prove to be crucial in some moment of your life, and you never know when it will happen or even in what way, right? You mentioned also RPGs. I think the cool thing is I've also played that, like not very recently, but I used to play those when I was younger. And the thing that you do there, like it's kind of like a child's play in a more mature environment, but you're kind of role playing. That's the whole idea, role playing. So like getting into someone else's shoes. And I think like it's also kind of understanding someone else's perspective, because you're impersonating someone else. So like understanding your clients, for example, or even like playing the role of the businessman or the Archviz artist. Yeah, I found that
it's a very powerful tool.
I think in Ethan Becker's, like he's like a YouTuber. He's doing like animation stuff and a little bit of controversial style of teaching or tips giving on YouTube. And he was talking about this in another podcast, that he created a persona for himself. Like it's like a love-hate persona. Like you might hate it or love it, but it's like a persona that he used for himself to just like get more confident, get to the goals that he had inside. Like it helped him like achieve those goals. So I think it's a useful skill as well, to be able to play the role, like in the approach, like fake it till you make it, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of fake it till you make it. Honestly, it's like fake it till you become it. Honestly, at the beginning, you will try to pretend of doing something that you'll not be able to do. But this goes for all kind of activities. When you start doing something, probably you're not really clearly aware of what you're doing. Even when I started doing images, I was not clearly aware of what I was doing. When I started doing images professionally, really professionally, I submitted my application to a huge architecture firm to do images. I was hired, but at the time I didn't even know clearly how 3ds Max worked. So I was learning by doing. And at the end, eventually I became proficient in 3D Studio Max. And you could say that it was fake it till you make it, but it's actually fake it through becoming, through making, honestly. Because I was making it, I was doing my job, and eventually I learned how to do my job. So role-playing is more or less the same. You pretend to be somebody else, but in reality, you're actually doing that. And in reality, in the game, in the reality of the game, you're actually doing that. And then you can apply some of those things outside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, like being open to new situations, new things that. So the fake it till you make it is kind of like we all have like a feeling of the faking part is like something negative, but I'm thinking it's like more of being open to what comes and open to things that you don't really know, and letting yourself not know things and learn, because it's really all about learning, I think. And
yeah, totally.
We always, because even if you're like an expert in a field, you may encounter like new situations that you haven't really managed yet, and especially with the new technology and stuff like that. That's we always have to be able to learn.
No, absolutely. I think learning is the key in an industry and in general in life. So you should not be afraid of starting doing something that you're not trained for. If you really you really set a goal for yourself that you want to do that thing, you'll have to face the initial phase in which you don't know what you're doing. It's just like that. You cannot be afraid of that. You should really. Well, I think it's being afraid is a normal reaction, but that fear should be redimensioned. Should have a relative impact. Should be put in perspective into the bigger scope of things.
Yeah, the big picture, so to speak. I guess this is a perfect perfect punchline for our talk, and I think we can end on that note and leave our audience with with the big picture of our whole industry and career. So thanks for the whole conversation. I think it was great. It brought up some nice topics, and I wanted for you to make like a few final words about yourself and your plans. Like you mentioned, this new learning platform that you are doing right now, where people can find you, your work, and your podcast as well.
Well, yes. As for the school, yes, it's very fresh. It's very new. As I mentioned, it's something that is a joint venture with Engram Studio from France and Italy, and we are launching an intensive in-class course during 5 weeks in Italy. Right now, we're starting in Italian, but we'll probably pretty soon open up to the international audience. But the first few Prime class, the name of course is Prime class, will last 5 weeks, and we'll start the 3rd of October in Faenza. And I was mentioning it's an intensive course that will basically train Archviz artists to be production ready. So it's not just about technical aspect, but also about conceptual aspect of our profession, how images are built, how we perceive images, and also about tips and tricks that you should know before starting as a 3D artist and working in a studio. Because as we all know, one thing is learning the technical side. The other thing is applying the technical side on your job. And to apply that, to be fast and to be productive, you always need to learn a few tricks. You always have to have a few aces up your sleeve. For example, when you have a really tight deadline and you have to be fast, or your workstation doesn't work because your files are too heavy and you have to know how to make these files lightweight, then you have to know these tricks. And this is what differentiates us from the rest of the schools, probably. As for me, yes, the podcast there's something about Archviz. Right now we are episode 14. I'm going really slow because it's more of a personal thing. I don't have a regular schedule, but I can assure you it's still ongoing. I have a few interviews that are lined up with very interesting people. Another thing that this is the first time that I say it publicly. I'll be at the T2 conference as a media partner with the podcast. So you'll find me there if you want to hit me up and chat a bit and know each other. So I'll be there in August, most probably. And I think that's it. And that's, of course, my image making activity as the big picture. You can just, if you're curious of what I do, you can just find my work at bigpicturevisual.com. And I think that's it.
Yeah, great. I'm wishing you all the best with the new ventures. And and if people want some special ace in their sleeve for rendering, we are. The podcast is backed by GarageFarm.net, which is a render farm service. So you can check it out. And if you're in a tight deadline situation, there's always extra computing power under your fingertips. If you want, you can use it. So thanks again for joining me, and I hope
it's been a pleasure. Really,
I hope you will be able to meet in person in some situation in the future. Right now, in the post-pandemic
hopefully
finally it's possible.
Yes. Yeah, with the events starting again, probably it's going to be possible. So I hope it will be possible pretty soon. But anyway, Thanks for having me here, and I hope the listeners will enjoy this conversation.
Yeah, great. So thank you again, and bye.
Bye, thanks.